Hey everybody, Connor here again, returning to talk about Inhumans. My last video was also a live broadcast where I was talking about the Inhumans IMAX experience, which was a re-edit of the first two episodes of the season into an hour and 10-minute long video or movie experience that they shot on IMAX cameras and put in IMAX theaters. And I saw that, and I did not like it, but I try to watch everything that has to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I've been watching the TV show. It was only 8 episodes. I hesitate to call this season one, although that's what I titled this video. I called it season one, but there's probably not going to be a second season of this. It was a Friday night show, which is usually not a good thing, but even for Friday nights, this apparently did abysmally in the ratings, and the actual show is really bad as well, so I don't see a second season coming at all. Which is a shame, because if you saw my video, I do like the Inhumans. If the comic books were like this show, I wouldn't like the Inhumans. So let me just start off by saying broad thoughts on this 8-episode season. The first season is done. You can watch it on Hulu. I don't know if it'll be added to Netflix or not. I'm sure when Disney has its streaming service, this may or may not be added to that. But you really don't need to watch this. If you like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would not recommend watching this. If you like Inhumans, I would not recommend watching this. If you like Marvel, don't watch this. This has nothing for anybody who likes good storytelling. You will not find it here. I am hard-pressed to say anything good about this show. This was a very difficult thing for me to watch, and I'm going to start off by talking about things that were concerned with the first two episodes. My initial desire was to talk about this show on a weekly basis as it was coming out. And then I just ultimately didn't do it because of time, but then also the show was just not giving me enough to talk about on a week-to-week basis. So to touch upon those first two episodes that aired together, and they were re-edited and broadcast to they're not broadcast, they were re-edited and put into IMAX theaters. If you watched this at IMAX theaters, you got gypped. Now the thing is, yeah, it was a bad idea. Why would you go to the theater and, as I found out, pay full IMAX price for an hour and 10 minutes worth of content that you could just wait 2 or 3 weeks and then get for free at the end of the month? And on top of that, you got more content at the end of the month, and on top of that, you got better content at the end of the month. I will stand by my statement that the first two episodes of Inhumans were very, very bad. The first two episodes, as you saw on television, made sense. Now, I had theorized that the footage that was cut from the IMAX experience was footage of Crystal, and I was sort of right. She has one scene where she talks with Maximus as Maximus is trying to lure her to his side. That was cut. But there's also another scene with Maximus where he starts the coup that got cut. I can't believe anybody would cut that. That seems more than necessary for this story to cut. And there's also a character named Louise, who is some kind of scientist person who was manning the moon rover in the first episode. There's a little subplot with her towards the beginning that got cut. Again, if you just watched the IMAX stuff and then said, "Oh, this is just a broadcast of what I watched in theaters. I'll take this week off and I'll start next week," that was a big mistake, because you'd think, who is this blonde chick and why should I care? Well, she was introduced in the beginning. So that, to me, was a very strange choice to edit any of this out, because even with these first two parts together, without any of the footage cut out, It's still not even 90 minutes. And if you're going to go to IMAX screens, pay full IMAX price, and watch only an hour and 10, I think that's inexcusable, and it would have been a better value. Not a valuable experience, but a better value to see it without anything. I think the whole element of the IMAX screening was a terrible idea. Like last time, I got my huge pitcher of water. So where to really get into this? I'm going to talk about the production because it's never good. Especially in the last 2 episodes, the editing gets really choppy and awkward within scene. The special effects shots with Lockjaw specifically, we have to edit around Lockjaw quite often. And I think that Adelan continuously looks underdesigned, and you know what? Scratch that. I'll get to that later. IMAX. This is a good way to segue into IMAX. The IMAX cameras were a very big problem because they expose every blemish in the design with a magnifying glass. This is a production that was very cheap. This felt very rushed into production. They didn't spend a lot of time with the sets. They didn't spend a lot of time with production design. This is so cheap, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. looks better than this, and that's not exactly a high budget show. It is extremely frustrating to watch this because instead of getting a 22 or 13 episode order, this got an 8 episode order, which I think is a good idea. It saves money, and then you can do more with the budget that you save. And they decided to use that budget with IMAX cameras and not enhance their set design or their costume design or anything. Every bit of the production looks cheap, and even more so with the IMAX cameras. We have people working with IMAX cameras that don't have experience, and it shows. And on top of it, it is more than stupid that they shot this entire show with IMAX cameras. I just thought they were going to shoot the first 2 episodes because that's what was going to go to IMAX screens. That's not the case. I don't get this. You get to see the wonderful canvas of IMAX on your TV. Why? This doesn't make any sense. I think it is a remarkably stupid thing that they did, and because of this, I don't see IMAX as a company approaching television anytime soon. They had some success with Game of Thrones, I think, last year or the year before last, and I think they might do stuff with HBO, but for network television, I don't see this happening, and I can't blame them. This looks very, very remarkably so bad. So getting back to the production, on top of the production being bad because a lot of these people seem inexperienced with the technology they are using, this is ABC, and every single creative decision here feels cheap. And that word is going to keep coming up because it is the operative word. They are running around the old sets of the TV show Lost. They're in Hawaii because they have all these old sets that they use. They're in Hawaii because it's cheaper to shoot in Hawaii. They run around the same forest set at least 17 times in this show, and I feel like I'm seeing the same trees in the same position over and over again. It looks ludicrously cheap and embarrassing to put the Marvel logo on top of this. I don't understand. There are facilities and buildings and all the stuff that exists seemingly in a vacuum. There is a weed farm that is in the middle of nowhere, and there is a doctor's facility that is in the middle of nowhere, and we have stock footage of, like a prison that is, out of the way of everything, and we have backwoods paths, nice and secluded that no one else is around. This feels so isolated from everything just within this story. We were trying to get away from people as much as possible. Even when we're in Adelan, we never ever see citizens of Adelan outside of like the last episode and I think the first episode or the first 2 episodes. So a majority of this is just people talking about the larger consequences of what will happen with their actions without us ever seeing what could be impacted. Adelan feels like a vacuum. It feels like 3 rooms and some guards with Maximus. So I guess I might get into the story now. I feel like I'm just talking and no one's really going to understand what I'm saying. Inhumans, the story here is that there's the royal family that consists of King Black Bolt, his queen Medusa, her sister is Crystal, his cousins are Karnak and Gorgon, and his brother is Maximus the Mad. Also, Triton is there, but he gets shot in the first scene, and his death is the inciting incident which leads to Gorgon going down to Earth to investigate Triton's disappearance or seemingly death, and then Maximus starts a coup to overthrow. He is only human. He is not an inhuman, and on Adelan there is a caste system. There's the lower caste, which I guess just consists of humans or not cool Inhumans, and everyone else seems to just be the royal family and everything's cool for them. We don't get a very good sense of what's really going on in Adelan, but that's just it. There's a lower caste, there's a higher caste. Maximus makes promises to the lower caste that, hey, we're no longer going to have to live secluded on the moon. We can go back to Earth and I'll be your king. And then he leads a coup, takes over the throne, and the royal family, the rest of the royal family, escapes to Earth and to try to figure out how they're going to deal with Maximus. Along the way, when they go back to Hawaii, Lockjaw, who teleports them, who's a teleporting dog who belongs to Crystal in this story, Lockjaw transports all of them to Hawaii, but different parts of Hawaii, so we can spend half of this show with all the characters jerking off and trying to get together so that we can run out time. And then all the while this is happening, Maximus is sending in assassins to try to kill the royal family so that he can go along with his coup, and he doesn't do anything else. Also on Adelan, some of the people in the Genetic Council, because there's one of those, because of Terrigenesis and blah, 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 they are trying to start a coup to overthrow Maximus because he is a moron. So that's the basic premise of this show. And right on a story level that I dislike here is I don't like any of these characters. And the reason I don't like any of these characters is because I don't think anyone telling the story wants to tell this story. It's Scott Buck. He made Iron Fist. Iron Fist sucks. And this show also sucks. I don't get what the point of making this show was. I know that, pardon me, in late 2014, early 2015, when Marvel announced their Phase 3 slate, that Inhumans was one of the last ones they had announced, or at least it was coming at the end of Phase 3. And then a very short time after that, Kevin Feige and Isaac Perlmutter, who is the CEO of Marvel, had a falling out, and Ike Perlmutter no longer had oversight over the film division of Marvel, and that Kevin Feige was now in control of that, but Ike Perlmutter was still in control of television and comic books and really everything else Marvel. And Kevin Feige, who was in charge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Marvel Studios proper, would report directly to Bob Iger of Disney. And also shortly after this was the disappearance of the Inhumans film off of the slate. So we weren't getting any more of that slate. Any more Inhumans movie. And then a little while after that, we found out about the Inhumans TV show. So also happening in the comics at the time, and I think still going on right now, is Inhumans were starting to be more prominent and becoming more like X-Men, and X-Men were starting to disappear. A lot of people attributed this to Ike Perlmutter because Marvel Studios didn't own the X-Men that belonged to 20th Century Fox. The screen rights belonged to 20th Century Fox for X-Men. Ike Perlmutter said, well, okay, let's not make money off of them, and let's make the Inhumans a much more prominent role, and so that they can basically replace the X-Men, which is a dumb idea. Inhumans are not the X-Men. They are much different, and there's a very similar thing of when you're an X-Men and you have a gene or a mutant gene, then at a certain point in your life you will mutate and you will maybe get a power or something. With Inhumans, you have to go through pterogenesis. It is in your genes, and you basically become something like a monster. You are inhuman. You don't resemble a person. And it's much more about isolationism and not being in the conversation of what that means to integrate into society or not, and or to integrate into a more globalist community or not. That's the point of Inhumans. And so with the Marvel TV shows and what we saw in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we did get more of a X-Men type, oh my god, I have superpowers, oh no, and then, oh no, hey, hold on now, we'll take you to a community and in a place where there's going to be a lot of people just like you. And that sounds a lot like X-Men now, doesn't it? This show also starts out like that, with Triton going down to say hi to Kate Yeager's daughter from Transformers 4 to recruit them, and then some foot soldiers shooting her and then also shooting him. That's more or less the only reference we really get to anything else in the Marvel universe. Is there's been an outbreak of Inhumans on Earth because of the events of the season 2 finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And Black Bolt is aware of this and is bringing some of the people from Earth up to Adelan. And this raises a few problems, mainly with Black Bolt. Black Bolt is a non-entity. He is somebody who has seemingly random and undefined and unclear motivations, unclear principles, and unclear tactics. At the beginning, so Adelan is just a place that basically has a disposable workforce. If you are a human or a lame Inhuman, which is most of these people, they are pretty lame, you just go down into the lower caste. At least that's the way I'm picking up on it. That's the way it seems to be explained. And when you're down there, you basically are mostly just a slave worker. You work too hard. That's the impression I get. This is extremely under detailed, and he seems to be wanting to bring more people up. Why? Why does he care about the people of Inhumans down on Earth? Does he care about their well-being but not care about their working conditions? What is the thing here? He's mute and he only signs, but nobody ever challenges him on that, and there is not a dialogue about that. And that is a pretty key problem, since a lot of the conflict comes from the way he rules, and when he gets usurped, Maximus is wanting to be a different kind of king. And since we don't really get what kind of a king Black Bolt is, we don't really get the dichotomy between him and Maximus seems confused and muddled. Another thing that Black Bolt likes to do is he doesn't do action. A lot of the royal family is saying, wow, these humans are eventually going to, well, Maximus actually says, what are you going to do when they find us? And Black Bolt's pretty much, let's not do anything. We are not going to do anything. And they haven't found us yet, so let's not do anything. Why does he not want to act? Again, that's just some sort of premise, some sort of impetus to where it's just there so that we can have a conflicting ideology for Maximus, but it's not a conflicting ideology if we don't get the initial ideology. I don't understand why Maximus is the way he is. At the end, we find out that there is a greater evil coming, and that is ambiguous and is just there to set up for a second season. So really, and we're not going to get a second season. If we do, whoop-de-doo, I don't care. For the sake of this story, his inaction is so loose and there's not a discussion about it that it hurts this story, because it hurts the conflict. It hurts Maximus as a character. It hurts Black Bolt as a character. So when Black Bolt, okay, and okay, also concerning the ending, this beginning really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Black Bolt knew that Maximus was plotting a coup, so he sent Triton down to Earth to get shot so that Triton could get into the water and just hang out in the water for 6 episodes. And then Gorgon would go down, and then he would go into meditation, and then not tell anybody else about this coup that he knew was going to happen, and so that he just trusted that all of the members of his royal family would just teleport down to wherever Triton or Gorgon will be, which will be Hawaii, and then they'll all just go down there because he knew this coup was going to happen. What this is like? That's what I got from the ending. Like I don't understand this, because Triton has a line towards the end. It's like, yeah, we knew something like this was going to happen. This was part of a plan. This is what he says to Black Bolt. This can't possibly have anything to do with this coming threat, this greater enemy on the horizon. This must have something to do within this story. It is a lame twist that, ooh, Black Bolt is a much more cunning and smart character than we had initially thought. No, this is really bad writing. If Black Bolt knew all this was going to happen and knew that he was going to respond the way he did, he's a moron. He's putting everyone in danger, and he's acting like a fool just to be challenged so he could beat his brother. Like, and his emotions, or at least what I'm reading from his face, where he's conflicted about the way his brother's treating. Like, none of this makes any sense. When you think about it for more than 2 seconds, it all starts to collapse in on itself. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and there's a strong possibility, like, this is so dumb, I could have misinterpreted what was actually happening. That's entirely plausible, because this was a struggle to get through. It is so unengaging and so dull and so poorly crafted that I fell asleep multiple times throughout watching these 8 episodes on a weekly basis. I had to, start the episode over again and try to get through this. And on a weekly basis, like, I was trying to remember where threads that were left off at the end of episodes, so we picked it up. Like, all of this was so unengaging, and I tried real hard to pay attention with what was happening in the story, but I think I got it all. But if I did not, I apologize. So Black Bolt as a character is an idiot, and he sucks. So on his character level, I don't know if he likes humans or not. He seems to be in his interaction with what few humans he does, he has a hesitant, but he's not frightened of them, mostly because his voice could probably kill them, I think. But he doesn't seem to hate them. He doesn't really even seem to fear them. He seems cautious of them. So I don't understand why he's not willing to interact with humans at all, while he is more just wanting to do nothing on the moon. Now let's talk about Medusa, because in my initial video I had talked about Medusa was the only character here who seemed to have a personality to me, who seemed to have presence, who seemed to seem at all engaged in other people's decisions. And by the time I get to the end of this, I realize this is a very bad performance. Serinda Swan, I don't know if she's a good actress or a bad actress, but based on this television show, she did a bad job. When we get to the end, she turns to Black Bolt and she says, I no longer want to be your interpreter. We are equals. I am your queen. We need to speak with a single voice. We need to have a correspondence. And I was baffled by that line of dialogue, because the performance this woman is giving, she is so fierce and so feisty and very assertive. I had just assumed that she and Black Bolt did have a dialogue, that they did have a respect for one another, that she was his equal. That was just my assumption. Early on, there's the line where she's talking to Maximus, and Maximus says, oh, do you speak for yourself or for our king? And she says, I speak for myself. And so Black Bolt doesn't seem at all like bothered by the statement. I don't understand the relationship by the time this show is over. He seemed like they seemed like equals to me. And if that's not the case, she is not playing this squeaky, or sorry, wow, my bad. She's not playing this shy enough. She's not playing this timid enough. She's not playing subservient enough to her king or to the other people, and she does not feel just like an interpreter. And the way you play this is you do play this as someone who is a bit shy and timid and subservient to the others, but has a strength and a desire underneath that surface to want to become an equal to the king and to the other members of the royal family. And the way they're playing it is she is equal to him the whole time, so that there isn't really a character arc by the time you get to the end of this. She's still just really feisty and really fierce and very dominant and assertive of a personality. So she goes down to Earth, and she doesn't like humans, and she's just really a spoiled brat. And she meets this character named Louise, who is the blonde chick who is manning the lunar module that I was talking about earlier. This character is wretched. This Louise character that Medusa runs into. This is a walking character quirk. She is socially awkward and whoa, aliens on the moon. Oh my god! Hey, do you think the way? Don't do that. Like it's like a 40-year-old soccer mom who was way too excited to be at this like Blink-182 concert. It was painful to watch. Her character sucks because she is a walking character quirk that, and it's trying to be a comedic relief character, but also she is the center of the human drama for Medusa. She's the one who's really going to bring Medusa down to earth and understand the virtue of humanity. That's I guess what her character's, that is the idea behind her character. I have no idea. If I was a space alien and I came down to Earth and I didn't like humans, I saw them as beneath me, and I met this person, I would feel justified in my assumption that humans are a lesser species. She is so stupid, so bumbling, and on top of that, like I can't say everything she does is irrational, because Medusa is a horrible person to her, and she's just a bad character. Medusa here, I think, sucks. She is selfish and bigoted towards humans, and she sees them as a lesser species, and she demands money, and she is a snobby, privileged, rich woman. And she doesn't seem to learn anything other than, well, the script says I need to like humans more, so I guess I just like humans here. There's not really anything that the characters do for one another that makes me believe that she is having a change of heart. It is extremely artificial, this entire progression of Medusa. And she has that perfectly shaven and coiffed Sinead O'Connor hair. I will say, from the hair rape scene from the first episode, nothing in this show is quite that funny, sans for maybe one thing, but also in that episode, how come she didn't stop Maximus from shaving her head? She has more than one strand of hair, right? She's got like a lot of hair. Whatever. This show is embarrassed to have a character with hair powers because it is kind of ridiculous. But the show, no one behind the camera cares about Inhumans. They're only doing this because Ike Perlmutter said we need to have an Inhumans show. And everyone involved just went, who cares? And just showed up and turned out the least interesting and least engaging show they possibly could have. Moving right along, I might have more to say about these characters, but I'll loop back and see how they're relevant to other characters. We get Karnak, played by Ken Leung. I will say this. Ken Leung's Karnak is probably the best character in the show, not because he is a good character, but because Ken Leung's performance seems in line with the material that it seems like he had. Ken Leung seems like he had at least read the entire script before showing up. With every other character and every other actor, I had said this in my previous video, it seemed like every single character involved or every actor involved got their scripts for the episodes or the scenes they were going to shoot the day before they got them and didn't know what sequence these scenes were going to be in. So they just showed up and look like deer in headlights and are like in seemingly a controlled panic. It seemed really awkward. So but Ken Leung is not that way. He at least seems to have an understanding of what the story is and his place in the story. And there's a progression to his performance. He seems like he's changing from scene to scene, from episode to episode, and the experience he's having are altering his personality. And so his character is the best simply by his performance. But his character is a total a-hole, and I don't like him on a character level. I do like Ken Leung, and I think his performance does a lot to try to humanize him. But by the time we get to his final confrontation with the comedy gold mine that is Mortis, I really don't like him, and I don't think he learned anything. So that's the one element where I feel like the story and the screenplay don't understand what these characters are doing from an episode-to-episode basis. So what happens with him is he hits his head on a rock, and then he loses his ability to really see every outcome, and he's learning what it's like to be a human, basically, because he doesn't have this superhuman intellect. He isn't like a human computer that processes all the outcomes. And he stumbles across a weed farm by some guy who's way too paranoid to even run anything like this, let alone enlist the help of 2 other people that he eventually kills. So we get the one other guy who was just there to die, but then we also get a girl there who is only there as a character to progress Karnak's journey. She does not seem to have any agency of her own. She's just enamored with the sexy dad bod of Ken Leung, and she just immediately comes onto him and just wants to get in his pants. You know, they sleep together, and she is like, no, just do whatever you need to do. Don't think about me. I'm not important. I am just there to support you and just be the supportive girl that when I die gives you man pain so that you can go and do what needs to get done. And this subplot is wholly unnecessary, and it doesn't end up changing. It's unnecessary because it doesn't end up changing him whatsoever. By the end of the season, he doesn't really say anything along the lines to even or do anything, or he doesn't seem changed in any way by these events of like the weed farm incident to be like, yeah, this is what I learned from that, and this is how it's going to affect me moving forward. He just seems to learn there, oh, gee, no, Gorgon, yeah, I was kind of mean to him. I kind of took him at face value, but he's my cousin and I love him. And he could have just learned that by not having him around. You know, he could have just been lost in the jungle without his intellect and been like, man, if Gorgon were here, he would at least have the willpower to just and not break under the circumstances of I don't know where I am. And you could have saved 40 minutes of screen time with the weed farm. And the whole thing has this crime element that is only there to ultimately serve an action scene that doesn't affect any of these characters or the plot or the story moving forward. It is extremely unnecessary. It did not need to be here. And on these action scene levels, there's only one good action scene in this entire show, and it's not even an action scene. I think it's episode 5 or 6, whichever one the comedy goldmine called Mortis dies in. That one, I think it is episode 6. That episode is maybe the best directed of the series, and I think that that the scene where Karnak talks down Mortis is like the best action scene in the entire show, but it's not really an action scene. It's more of an intense dialogue sequence. The action scenes here aren't good enough to justify the arbitrary nature of them. And I'm trying to think about the thought process here. If you did not care about the show you're making and you're just kind of generically making something that's like, oh yeah, I kind of read these Inhumans things and it's kind of like this, you know, there's some there's a king, you know, and then there's Maximus, and he wants to usurp the throne, and they don't like humans, so we're gonna go down to Hawaii so we can have some Earth sets that are nice and cheap, and oh yeah, it's superhero. Let's put in some action scenes. I don't understand. If I didn't care about a superhero property and I just read some of the comics and I didn't like the comics, I would say, okay, here are some cool action scenes we can come up with all these characters. And we only have 8 episodes. Let's not shoot on IMAX and let's just blow our budget on some stupid action scenes so people can go, well, it's not good, but at least it's entertaining. This is not even entertaining. These are just bad action scenes. And again, here comes that operative word. They eventually start looking cheap, especially when I think it's episode 7 or 8 where Ken Lung's Karnak has to like jump over a pool. I feel like I could practically see the strings holding him, and then like I could see him like, okay, I'm landing now, and then I got to punch, and there's a weird, again, that slowness permeates this entire show. Then we get Crystal. Crystal is played by Isabel Cornish, and gorgeous looking lady, and I think gives a better performance than I had maybe initially given her. But she does feel very Disney Channel, Nickelodeon type. She feels a little out of her element, but you know, this is a show that has the Medusa performance, so it's not the worst performance here. It's got the character Louise here. It's not the worst performance in the show, and she's not really in this a whole lot. Her whole thing is, I am the princess. I am the younger sister of Medusa, and I don't really have a whole lot of friends. I'm a bit of a troublemaker. I can control the elements. That's my thing, and I have a teleporting dog named Lockjaw. So she gets a later start on going down to Hawaii just for the seeming reasons of, well, we need to run out the clock a little bit longer. We're going to have her stay in Adelan so Maximus can try to seduce her to his side, and she's going to say no and then teleport down to Hawaii. Then she's going to meet some hunky dude with an ugly ex-girlfriend, and then they're going to just fall in love, and then she's going to have to leave him, and it's going to be this really heartbreaking secret. Like this is as typical and generic a thing as I could possibly come up with. Like, I feel like if you were to walk up to me and say, okay, Connor, make the most lazy thing possible, I would just say that. Like, she finds some hunky guy, and then they have a bit of a relationship. And there's nothing more to really say about it. It is the source of, I don't know why she goes down to Earth as late as she does. She only is down there as late so she can't have the jump on interacting and meeting up with all of the other Inhumans so that we can prolong them just jerking off around Hawaii and trying to come together. This is just another pet peeve of mine. So this is some elitist, advanced alien species. They have little communicator wrist things, but they can't locate one another. So they just have to like kind of ditz around and like wander around until the script says, okay, and now they're going to find each other. I don't know why this is happening. Like, why is this the Inhuman story we got? They're barely around each other, and it's just prolonging this for 6 episodes that we can just get to the last 2. It's a lot like Defenders was. Defenders had no idea what it wanted to do for 7 episodes, and then the last episode, it finally just went, okay, now you get what you want. We just wanted to have a building. In that regard, why didn't they just make Defenders a Netflix original movie? Just make it a 2.5-hour long Netflix original movie, and it would have been fine. It wouldn't have been that great, but it at least would have had a coherent 3-act structure with action and character beats. This is the same way. Why didn't they just make this an ABC original movie, like a straight-to-TV movie? I don't know why they didn't do that. It at least would have been more confined, more focused, and there would have been a logical progression instead of just running up the clock of, okay, now we need to go jerk off with this hunky guy. Now we need to go run around the woods and find a weed farm. Now we need to go to prison. Now we need to break out of prison. Now Desmond from Lost needs to take me to his lab. Now we need to have not Cyclops, who is the comedic gold mine named Mortis, come around. And we need to have not die, and then Triton just needs to be underwater the whole time, and he swims out of the water like he's David Hasselhoff from the SpongeBob movie. Like, this feels like I'm making this up. Like, I can't believe the words that are coming out of my mouth, which is, I think, another big problem here. This should have just been a movie. This almost feels like they had a screenplay for a film, or the idea of a film, of their phase 3 canceled Inhumans project, just a basic outline, and they said, well, you know what, new plan, it's a TV show, get it out as soon as possible. So they just took that outline, stretched it out, and then that's what we got. And honestly, if it was a movie, that just would have been better. Or just don't do it, because the Inhumans effects are big screen. That's what you need to do, okay? You need to make something that looks inhuman. Don't make an X-Man. Make an Inhuman with a weird giant head and scary claws and teeth everywhere, and make them Inhumans. Damn it, make them Inhumans. So we also would have had better special effects. We would have had better production design. We would have at least had a budget and people who knew what they were doing. And we, okay. Maximus is a terrible character. Now, Ewan Ryan, as it turns out, was not bad casting for this. When we get to that last episode, and he's rambling, and he's all reveling in his evilness, and had they made this character, Maximus the Mad, made him like a mad scientist archetype style character, instead of like some generic, dull, boring revolutionary type who just constantly broods in monologues about, oh, this is what it used to be like. You don't trust me because I'm only human. Well, I'm going to get re-terragenerized, and I get to choose my own power, and I'll be an Inhuman. If he's not constantly talking about his motive, or at least his backstory, and just trying to spout all of this exposition so that you understand his backstory, and they just made him do things that would have informed the character, because, show, don't tell. And then this would have been pretty good, because when he's just wandering around and kind of being a little bit more like a mad scientist, it's not that bad. He's actually kind of having a lot of fun, and I'm having more fun watching him, but I'm still annoyed by him, and it irks me to listen to him talk, because I feel like he's changing his tune every other scene he's in, where he wants to do something because people don't, they underestimated me, so I'm going to show them why they shouldn't have been underestimated me. Oh, you don't trust me, so I'm going to kill you. Oh, you don't trust me, but I'm going to give you one last chance now. It seems so arbitrary to me, and I don't understand how this guy was willing to convince enough people to start a coup and follow through on it. And these people seem like, duh, Maximus doesn't seem that smart. Then why are you following him? Why are you allowing him to take power? How did anybody follow him? I don't get it. It makes no sense to me on a character level. So now I'm going to talk about the comedic goldmine that is Mortis, because Mortis is hilarious. The way we build him up is, oh man, don't send in Mortis. He's just death. Oh, he's like a walking nuclear bomb. He's just death. And then out walks the cheapest looking cosplay costume I've ever seen. I almost choked on whatever I was eating because I could not contain my laughter. And what is this almost death guy? He's just Cyclops, or the Destroyer from Thor. He just lifts off a mask and then blasts like a blaze. Like, this costume design is so embarrassing. If I were the director and I was on set and out walked this thing, I would have said, look, I get it. No one here wants to make this show. We have a short order. We have a bunch of actors here who don't know what they're doing. We're wandering around lost old sets because we're trying to save money. We have IMAX cameras here because we wanted to have some kind of marketing ploy, but we also have people here who don't understand how to use IMAX cameras. We have everything going against us, but we're better than that. I'm not going to allow this hideous costumed thing to define my television, or like at least I'm not going to allow something that low a quality to be here. It is an embarrassing costume design. What made all the worse under an IMAX lens, where you can see that it, like a cosplayer made this. It would have been a cool cosplay costume. I'm not saying that that cosplay costumes are bad, but it doesn't look like a professional network television costume. I don't understand this. HBO has Game of Thrones. We had, Westworld. We had Twin Peaks on Showtime, which was excellent. And these shows look good. They look more or less like movies. How is network television the premier source for, like, everyone kind of, well, not really the premier source, but it's, most people just turn it on to channel 2 or channel 6 or channel 8, and we get, just, oh, well, look, it's a TV show on a free network. How is this what we're getting? How has the golden age, the supposed golden age of television with Mad Men and Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones and all these big television shows, how has this not influenced network television? How is network television still the bottom of the barrel, safest, lowest common denominator entertainment? How is this still happening? Pardon me? Where to go now? I guess I'll talk about why I dislike the way this show pussyfoots around the the conflicting ideologies of Black Bolt and Maximus. So this show's protagonists are the bad guys. Black Bolt is a negligent king who doesn't like the welfare of his people. We have Medusa, who is just like him. We have Karnak and Gorgon, who just like to stuff their face with a bunch of food and like to talk about how much better they are than everybody else. These people are the bad guys. And on paper, Maximus is the good guy, except he's irresponsible and stupid and doesn't know how to do anything. And how he was able to get a coup, I don't know. It's only there because the plot needs him to, so that we can have a show. So Maximus makes these speeches towards the beginning to the people of Adelan, saying, it's going to be better. You people will at least have a better life off world. Pardon me, or else at least on Earth, and you won't have to like basically just live in this filth of the mines and all that stuff. And then when Black Bolt gets sent down, we're supposed to sympathize, and the other royal family members get sent down to Earth. They're supposed to go through a journey where they get humanized by their interaction with the people of Earth, and they understand that, these people that we've seen as lower are still people. But here's the problem with that: their rhetoric and what they're saying and what they're fighting for doesn't really change. At one point, a character dies and says, "Be a better king. Be the king we need," to Black Bolt. And they don't really get challenged on that. He never makes that change. It just is given to him so that we don't have to deal with that really kind of awkward and troublesome message of, had Adelan not blown up and it just would have been the ending of Thor Ragnarok, had the ending of Thor Ragnarok not happened to Adelan, what would have changed? I don't know, because Black Bolt is perfectly fine and complacent with everyone kind of living a really horrible life just as long as he's happy. Maximus wants a better, wants what's best for the people and wants them to not live like cavemen. But then Adelan blows up. And they go and they're able to evacuate everyone, go back to Earth, and Maximus is like, all right, we're back at Earth, and this is going to be our new place, and I'm gonna be your king, and it's all gonna be great now. But what if it hadn't blown up? What if you had taken out Maximus and we're still the king? You would have still had the caste system. You would have still been mining them. You probably would have still done nothing. But Maximus forced your hand, and now you have to live down there. And nothing would have changed. Everything would have just gone back to normal. And but the show doesn't want to have a conversation or challenge its main characters. It just wants us to side with them because they're the ones that are on the poster. And I can't blame all these people for wanting to turn on Maximus or on Black Bolt out of principle, but we don't get much on their perspective of why they would want to turn. But also, Karnak at least has a moment where he's taking down the comedic goldmine that is Mortis, where he's talking him down. Mortis talks about how when he went through Terrigenesis, he came out and he just started blowing everyone up with his face. He was the face of death. And then as a result, he only had his Terrigen powers for like 15 minutes before they locked him away for years. And he doesn't want to go back to that, and he's scared of that. I can't blame the guy. That would suck. And then Karnak says, you know what? We will find a different way. We will find a better way. This is the way we're going to do it from now on. You will have a better life moving forward. And then he knocks him out, and he subdues him. Okay, that's fine. And then Gorgon says, yeah, you didn't really mean that though, did you? And Karnak's like, no. Oh, so you have no remorse, and you think you are completely justified in the horrible way in the elitist way that they've been living their lives this whole time. And then Mortis wakes up, and it's like he heard the conversation because he's in handcuffs. And what idiots are these? If you have a guy who all he has to do is reach up and take off his mask so that he can turn into Cyclops and shoot everything and blow everything away, why would you put handcuffs on the front of somebody so they can just go? Which, by the way, is what happens. Why don't you just tie it behind the back like any cop would, or anyone that has any deductive reasoning would do? Or, if you're Karnak, like, you don't need to see that far ahead to have to tie it behind it. Anyways, Mortis seems to hear this conversation. He wakes up in handcuffs. He's like, no, I'm not going back. And then Gorgon, like, grabs him, and then a rock hits him in the head, and he dies. And I'm supposed to feel bad for Gorgon? Why? There are also a series of wholly unnecessary flashbacks. The child acting is really, really bad, as per Scott Buck tradition. And they're not necessary because my mind immediately goes to a flashback of Maximus training with Gorgon and how he's like, you need to train here because I'm not going to go easy on you. You just need to learn how to get better. And then eventually the sparring session's over. Maximus grabs a pole and then hits it over Gorgon's head. And then what we're supposed to get hit from here is, oh, he's using fringe tactics. It is the sparring match has been over, and he's using the person thinking that the session's over to then strike his attack. Ooh, he's a bit of a weasel. He's a bit of a cheat. We already knew this for like 5 episodes. Why is this important at all? Yikes. And there's a lot of weird edits. There's a lot of weird there's a lot of weird editing choices. There's a lot of weird storytelling choices that just prolong what we already know. I feel like I'm talking in circles at this point. Inhumans season 1, or I'm just going to call it Inhumans. In the Inhumans TV show was extremely bad. Would I call it as bad as Iron Fist? Probably not. Iron Fist is longer by a significant margin, like 5 episodes longer. So, and the episodes of Iron Fist are longer in and of themselves than an episode of Inhumans. So I would say that this one is maybe marginally better by that, but also the final episode of Inhumans is maybe the best one, where at least stuff finally starts happening and it isn't just people yell at each other and we finally play Chekhov's gun so that Black Bolt can blow up everything. And it's at least tasteful in how they don't kill Maximus. That was at least kind of nice. It at least shows us that, you know, our main characters might be horrible people, but they're not going to murder somebody just because they. Yeah, that was fine. That's maybe the only reason. And Iron Fist's final episode was like the worst episode of that entire show. Don't really have much more to say outside of just little moments. This was an extraordinarily bad misfire. I hope we never see this again. And unfortunately, we're never going to see the Inhumans again, which is a shame because I think there was a real story that could have been told here, and I think that this was a real wasted opportunity. I'm going to see if there's any comments here. 1 second. So Mr. Cool 210, you're watching. Howdy, how you doing? He says, watch some Inhumans tonight, first 2 episodes, and it killed him. Yeah, those first 2 episodes are extremely rough. Would not recommend watching them. And the show does not get much better from there. It maintains that consistent quality, and you know, on any other show that'd be a good thing. Not here though. Nathan Snyder, hello Nathan Snyder. He says, short version, Scott Buck really messed up. They rushed. The rush job to make it into a TV show instead of a film really hurt it and felt like they didn't know what to do with it. Not awful, but pretty mediocre. I agree with you up until the point where you say it's not awful. I thought this was awful. The from the overcooked acting to the extraneous, needless subplots only there to pad out the running time, to the unbelievably cheap nature of the production quality. I found it all to be awful. I think this is more than just mediocre. I would call Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. mediocre. It is a perfectly average show that has the potential to get better, but doesn't because it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think that's all the people that have been commenting. I didn't expect any many comments here because this whole stream started nearly an hour later than I wanted it to because YouTube sucks. You suck, YouTube. Guess that's all I really have to say here. I might be doing a live review of Justice League. Might not. Oh well. I might do something for Punisher, but I might do that with the Comics Kid 2099. Don't know yet. So yeah, Inhumans is done. Goodbye, Inhumans. You sucked. Thank you guys all very much for watching. I'm Connor Nielsen, and I'll see you next time.